necessary to produce a well-rounded, fully educated citizen. I'm just coming back from Chicago, where I spoke to the St. Mark's. It's a little church in Chicago. Mike came and Mike was raised in that church. I saw holes in the wall that he had created that were still there. But I talked to them about classical education. This is the next conversation we have to have as a church. Classical education as opposed to public school education. Public school education is, many of you already know, is dangerous, is serving the agendas of the state, serving the agendas of the world, whereas in our life what we need is this classical education, which was right now what education is? Job training. It's not education. And not only that, if I told this generation, hey, if I give you this computer and you hit enter every other second for the rest of the day and I give you $1 million, they would all do that. They would say, oh great, $1 million. Just I have to hit enter, that's all I have to do. I've taught them, I don't need science, I don't need math, I just hit enter and I'll make money and I'll live, everybody will be fine with that. That's not a well-rounded individual. And that's where our generation is failing in teaching the next generation about what it means to be educated. This education was meant to humanize a person. Not to train the person to do things, but to train the person to be the glory of God. And I mentioned this before, philosophers and intellectuals and many people during this age would say the greatest thing you could do as a human being is to live a life of virtue. The greatest pursuit you can do is to live a life of virtue. And that virtue would be embodied in you, ingrained in you. That virtue would mean you would be a person that was committed to truth, committed to goodness, committed to justice, committed to righteousness. This is what was to be sown in you. And the idea of classical education is, we'll teach you these things, we'll teach you grammar, rhetoric, logic, and then you will be able to handle everything else. So for example, when we talk about logic, right, and truth, what logic, sometimes we think it's like this course in college that some people take, or maybe you have to take. Rhetoric is just about speaking, but something simple as logic, and I was pointing this out to the group over there, is the truth that our public school system wants to impose and impress upon us. The truth is, they say, that there is no absolute truth. That what's true for you, it doesn't necessarily have to be true for me. But logically speaking, that can't be true, because then that's an absolute truth. You're saying there's no absolute truth, except the fact that there's no absolute truth doesn't make sense. Why do I have to accept your truth? It's just something simple, but logic would tell us that from the very beginning. I can't accept something that doesn't hold water. And at the same time, we are understanding truth and beauty and goodness as objective, not as subjective. This has to be very important for us to understand. It was always objective during this time. And it continued to be objective. Small history lesson up until the Enlightenment movement, when the Enlightenment philosophers said, we want to separate ourselves from the church and we want to know things without the church telling us. Like, we don't want the church to tell us what's right and wrong. We'll decide. We don't want the church to tell us what's true. We'll decide. That became what's known as the modern age. And then we jump into today is the postmodern age. Postmodern age is anything can mean anything. Literally, anything can mean anything. So there are also presuppositions that we have to understand. The church's form of teaching is mostly non-verbal. No matter what I tell you, no matter what I do, no matter what I say to you, and no matter what you turn around and you do and you say to others or your kids, most of education happens through imitation. Say monkey see, monkey do. That's how the kids learn. That's how they learn everything. And so most of the church was never set up to be like lectures after lectures after lectures. The church was about the sacraments, especially the Eucharist. And it teaches by being themselves. What does that mean? It's not that the sacrament, we stop and we say, okay, we're doing this because of X, Y, and Z reasons, and we're doing that, and we use the sacraments to educate. No, the education is in what we do. Right? So what does that mean? We come in here, front and center is Christ. We come in here, everybody is put on the same level. Right? Nobody is more important. There's no more important seating. Although some places you go, there are people that's their seat, that's where they sit. They've, pretty much feel like they purchased the bench. But in the church, everyone, it's pure equality. Sayyidina, the Pope, doesn't get more of the divinity of God through the Eucharist than you or me or the little children. Everybody is given equally in the church. All of this forms us and educates us. In addition to that formation and education, we come to solemn points where, we read the Bible, we stand with the reading of the Bible. At the point when we're about to take the sacrament, there's a lot of bowing and prostrations. All of that is educating us, is teaching us. And this understanding is a key concept. The services are education, they're not performing education. And let me